Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. Now we are continuing with our walkthroughs of the 2023 SATs papers. As we said in the previous one where we went through all of the comprehension questions, the government have released the English papers early. So we are here now with the grammar, punctuation and spelling test. Let's dive in. This is question 1 and what we're looking at here is 50 questions to answer in a 45-minute paper, all about different grammar, punctuation and spelling questions. So we're going to dive in and see how to answer every single question here. Which sentence is a command? Now the command in this sentence, if we think about commands in general, they usually start with imperative verbs, or you may have heard them called bossy verbs. In this case, it is run as fast as you can. You're telling someone to do something, the rest are merely statements. So the command there is run as fast as you can. Question 2, tick one box in each row to show whether the sentence is an exclamation or a question. Now there's a few ways to do this. The way I like to do it is to just look for the questions first. They all start with how. Now how is one of those words that often starts a question, but it can also start an exclamation where there is no question asked. So if we identify the questions first, the others should be exclamations. How many times have you been swimming pool? That is clearly a question. How will you spend your summer holidays? Again, we are asking someone something. Now the rest, let's just double check how disappointing it was. This here is the way that we write this sentence for an exclamation. If you're asking a question, you might say, how disappointing was it? So those tiny little changes there are going to swap it from an exclamation to a question. How kind you are, not how kind are you. That would be a question. So simple one there. Question 3. Draw a line to match each word to a suffix. Make all 4 different words. Use each suffix only once. So a suffix is a group of letters at the end of a word. Here we have the root word. And this one's just trial and improvement really. Let's see which ones work. Socialish, no. Socialal, no. Socialize, absolutely works. Relationship. Childish. And season goes to seasonal. So quite straightforward there. If we just rotate them around, some of them sound like nonsense, but some of them will sound correct. We just need to know which ones are which. Question 4, insert a comma in the correct place for the sentence below. In this question, we're looking at a comma for a list. So let's take a look. We will be, and here comes the list of the things they'll be doing. Planting, comma. No, that would be wrong. You have to read the whole sentence for the context. We will be planting seeds, making a pond, and looking for snails. So we think about what the parts of the list are here. Planting seeds is one, making a pond is the other, and then we have the and to separate the last one, which was looking for snails. So therefore the comma has to go between seeds and making, and that will get you a mark. Question 5, circle the correct word in each underlined pair to complete the sentence using standard English. The autumn leaves was crunching, the autumn leaves were crunching. So we have to circle were here. Difference there is between singular and plural. The leaf was, the leaves were. We done a great job, classic one there that we might say out loud, especially if our dialect's different. But here in standard English, we did a great job. And the last one I hear so often out loud when people talk, but in this test, we have to get standard English. My brother didn't do nothing to help us. That would be absolutely incorrect. My brother didn't do anything. If you think about it, didn't do nothing. That's a double negative, which means he did something. It doesn't make any sense. Question 6. Which pair of words are antonyms? You have to know in this context that antonyms mean opposite. And we have a group of root words here. Well, we have marine goes to submarine. Cycle is used doubly here. So they kind of linked these words, but only 2 of them are opposites. The opposites here are proper and improper. The other ones are just different ways of using the root word that don't necessarily mean the opposite to each other. So this question's all about knowing that antonym means opposite. Question 7. Tick the sentence that shows Lara is most likely to go swimming on Saturday. Here we have a bunch of modal verbs. Will go, should go, might go, and could go. And we think about modal verbs as almost like a kind of like a spectrum here of 0 chance of doing something and absolutely will do it. And if we think about these ones here, could, might, should, they all give kind of room for doubt, don't they? They're all in the middle somewhere. Whereas this one is definite. Laura will go. This is way up here. Only a disaster will stop her going. So we tick that one because will go is the most likely modal verb there. Question 8. Insert a pair of brackets in the correct place in the sentence below. Now, when we insert a pair of brackets, we should be able to take whatever's inside those brackets out and the sentence will still make sense. We can also look for clauses, especially relative clauses, which is exactly what we're looking for in this question. So Charlotte bracket, who usually hated getting wet, close bracket, loved splashing about in the sea. I like to do the whisper test when it comes to brackets. Say the sentence, whatever's in the bracket, whisper it and see if it still makes sense. For example, Charlotte, who usually hated getting wet, loved splashing about in the sea. And we notice here that it works without the brackets, therefore we know it's correct. Charlotte loved splashing about in the sea. Question 9. Which sentence is the most formal? Straight away, if you see apostrophes for contraction, you know it's not very formal. So we're going to get rid of this one as an option and the bottom one here. So we're left with just these two and then read them through, look for those vocabulary choices. It is essential, that sounds very formal to me, it is essential that you take your belongings with you. So what we've done here, if we compare them, please pack up. So pack up and stuff. Clearly belongings is a much more formal word choice here. This is the most formal for sure. Question 10. Circle 2 words in the sentence below that are synonyms of each other. Just like antonyms meant opposites, synonyms means the same. We have to know this. And the 2 words here are overjoyed and delighted. Now, I've underlined them. Be really careful. It says circle. Circle them. Just do it. It might allow it, if you have a clear indication of which ones you're going for, absolutely. But just stick to what they're asking you to do just to be super safe. It's always the best thing to do, guys. Question 11. Which sentence is punctuated correctly? Now here we have a relative clause in the middle of a sentence, which has to be, in this case, shown with a pair of commas. So Charlie's party, comma, which was at the ice rink, we'd have to put something in here to indicate the relative clause has ended, so I don't like the first one. Charlie's party, which, we need something there, so that's wrong as well. Not the first two, using deduction here. Charlie's party, which was at the ice rink, was really enjoyable. That one looks absolutely fantastic to me. I'm going to make sure with the bottom one, Charlie's party, which was at the ice rink. No, this comma's in the wrong place. So if you see a relative clause like that, either side of it, before we had brackets, you can also use commas. In this sentence, we were looking for the correct use of commas. Question 12. In which sentence is plant a verb? Now, this is a classic question type here where a word can be both a verb and a noun. The recycling plant, that is a place, that is a noun. We're not doing an action there. The children plant beans. That is a verb because this is a noun. They are planting the beans. So we can tick that one straight away. In the test, you'd move on, but I'm going to prove to you my plant, that's a noun, that's a thing that you own. And a plant pot, that there is a noun, isn't it? It's being used as a thing. Question 13. Insert a colon in the correct place in the sentence below. Now we need to know what colons do. They separate out clauses. So if we think about this sentence here, we're clearly going to have 2 clauses. Let's see where the colon would go. Dipti is keen to practice the drums. She wants to play in the school band. You can see very clearly that we could end the sentence here and then start a new one with she wants to play in the school band. They're the 2 clauses. So once we identify those, we know the colon is going to go right in the middle of the 2. Question 14. Which sentence is the most formal? We've already had a question like this. We're being tested again on our formality. Now, the difference here in this one, we have no apostrophes for contraction to help us out quickly. So we have to just read them through and have a check. I asked him to phone me when he got here. Now, I could think of more formal ways to say got here, such as arrived or something like that. So I'm not sure that's going to be the best one, the most formal. I told him to call me as soon as he turned up. Again, not so formal, makes sense, of course, but not very formal. Ring me. So we've got phone me, call me, ring me when he came in. Got here, turned up, came in. I'm sure we can do better and look at the bottom one. I requested, immediately better than asked, told, got. So that's better. He telephoned, better than ring, call, phone. And when I say better, I mean more formal, of course. On arrival, much more formal. On all 3 of these parts of the sentence, the bottom one is way more formal than the rest, just through word choice. Question 15. Rewrite the underlined verbs so that they are in the simple past. This one here, for regular verbs, such as jump, all we're doing here is converting it to something that's already happened, and quite often we'd add ed. But of course, we're going to pick irregular verbs in the test to try and trick us up. So feed goes to fed. That's the past tense there of something that happened. I fed my cat. And eat, if I eat, but it was yesterday, I ate. So again, we're not going to get here questions where we can quite simply just put ed on the end. It's testing those irregular verbs, of course, to try and push us to our max. Question 16. Insert a dash in the correct place in the sentence below. The house was in need of repair. The windows were broken and the roof was leaking. Again, a dash. Like in many of these questions, we're testing, can we identify where the clauses are? The house was in need of repair. That's the end of that clause. Now we're doing a dash for extra information as to the detail about why it was in need of repair. The windows were broken and the roof was leaking. So the dash has to go there after repair, but before windows. Next one, question 17. Let's go down here. Tick one box in each row to show whether the apostrophe is used in a contracted form or for possession. This is really simple if you know what contracted form means. That's where two words have become one and the apostrophe is there to show that contraction where the letters went missing. For example, let's hope it warms up soon. Nothing is owned by let. Let isn't a thing. This merely used to be let and us. So we know that's for contraction. Then here, the teacher's coats. The coats belong to all of the teachers, so that's possession. The children wear their scarves when it's cold. It isn't a object here. Well, what we're saying is it is. Okay, so this one used to be two words. Let me be really clear. If it used to be two words, then it's for contraction. Scarves when it is cold. Just do a simple substitution. Put in the two words it could be. If it works, brilliant. Here, for example, if we tried teachers is, the teachers is coats, it's nonsense. So that's clearly for possession. Question 18. Which option completes the sentence using the present progressive? Now, present progressive is quite simply something that is happening right now as we go on. That's why it's progressive. It's still happening. So I upload the photos. No, that is not correct. It's not going on right now. And if we just scan our way through, actually, it's very obvious, isn't it? I am uploading. It's happening right now in the present and it's continuing to happen. It's not finished yet. I am currently uploading. I am doing it right now. I am jumping. I am writing. I am uploading. So present progressive there is right now in the present, still happening, still going on. Question 19. Which sentence uses tense correctly? Again, lots of time spent reading through sentences here. Let's take a look. She is getting the ball and then she scored the winning goal. This is present. She's getting the ball. Like we just said, progressive. She scored past. That's not matching up the tense. It's wrong. My friends thought it was a good film. Sorry, thought the film was good, but I don't like thrillers. That's promising because even though the senses they might present themselves as slightly different, it still does make sense there. I don't like thrillers. My friends thought the film was good. So that does marry up. But let's keep going to see if the others are definitely wrong. When the clock strikes midnight, everyone was in bed. When the clock strikes midnight, everyone was in bed. What we need to say there is when the clock strikes midnight, everyone gets into bed. The tense here is just off. And if you say it out loud, honestly, half the time you start to think, no, it would have to be worded slightly differently. Tonight he is playing rounders and she joined in. How can she have joined in past tense with something that's happening tonight? Absolute nonsense. So the one here that uses tense correctly was indeed the second sentence. Question 20. Replace the underlined words in the passage below with the correct pronouns. A pronoun is a word we replace a noun with to avoid repetition. Maggie and Helena wanted to visit the museum. Maggie and Helena, we wouldn't say Maggie and Helena again. We would instead say, in this case, they. You need to be really careful. Although it says in the mark scheme there are no capitalization requirements, I would just always be erring on the side of caution here. Put a capital letter because it would replace the first word in a sentence. They tried to go after, but the museum. Again, I'm not going to repeat the museum. The pronoun for museum would be it because it's an object, it's a place, it's a thing. Okay, it was closed. Question 21, use inverted commas. Again, every single child who's in a school has heard of this now. If you're an adult, you might think, what on earth are inverted commas? Just a word we use for speech marks. So question 21, they purposely put gaps in between each word. We need to figure out what's being said out loud. May I use the computer? And then include the end punctuation inside of the inverted commas. Now, the mark scheme also clarifies that you can just use one, just like this. So double it up or just one, absolutely fine. Both are correct uses of inverted commas, and that's where they have to go. Question 22. Tick one box in each row to show whether the underlined word? What's a verb? Underlined word is a noun, a verb, or an adjective. There are many magnetic materials. We are describing the materials in this case, so magnetic is an adjective. Magnets attract some metals. Magnets here are things, they're objects, so that's a noun. We can magnetize the nail. Now, if you're stuck in this one, just think, what could I replace magnetize with? We can hit the nail. We can study the nail. We can throw the nail. These are all verbs. So magnetize in this case, you don't need to know how to magnetize a nail to know that it's a verb. Question 23. Tick all the sentences. Whoop, let me get it on the screen. Tick all the sentences that have been punctuated correctly. So again, all the sentences is telling me that there might be more than one. When you have tidied your bedroom, you can play in the garden. This is not a question. When is a question word, but in this case, it's being used as a conjunction just to say when you can do something. So this is not one that we need to tick. If I tidy my bedroom, can I play in the garden? This is clearly a question. Can I play in the garden? Absolutely. You can play in the garden. So again, it's the organization here of these two words. You can and can you. If the can came first, it'd be a question. This is not a question. You can play in the garden if you tidy your bedroom. That's just a statement of a fact. And finally, in the bottom, can I? Can I? So it starts that way around. This is a question. Can I play in the garden when I've tidied my bedroom? Question 24. Insert one apostrophe in the correct place in the sentence below. So we're not told what the apostrophe is for. Is it for contraction or for possession? Let's read it and find out. When James plays darts, look at this. This is classic, by the way. I'm going to tell you right now. None of these are the answer. S, S, S. If we see S and uses and his, I know they're less obvious, but look how many words in this sentence end in an S, trying to trick you into putting the apostrophe in the wrong place. James here is just a name. No contraction, no possession. Plays is a verb, no contraction, no possession. Darts is a name of a game, a noun. So no contraction, no possession. However, the dartboard here belongs to the father. So we put the apostrophe before the S. Now, just so you're aware, if you're thinking, well, what if there's more than one father and the dartboard belongs to all of them? The mark scheme also allows you to put the apostrophe after the S. Now, it wouldn't go there, obviously. I'll make it really clear. It can go before or after. Don't do both. Pick one, okay? It allows plural possession. Either of them will get you a mark. They're not going to penalise you for saying, well, of course, it could belong to more than one father. Question 25. This marks halfway there when we finish 25, guys. Circle all the adjectives in the sentence below. Unfortunately, the weather was terrible. Cold and wet. So we've got a colon here separating clauses. Cold and wet, a bit of extra information at the end. Let's think, what words are being used to describe the weather? Because the weather's the noun here. Well, we're using terrible to describe the weather. But then we're going into more detail after. In fact, cold and the word wet, all three of these are being used to describe the noun, the weather. So you need to have circled all three to get the mark for that question. Question 26. We are halfway, by the way, because we've done 25 now. Insert a pair of dashes. Again, we're looking for a clause then in the middle of the sentence, which we can remove and the sentence still makes sense, but it's providing us with extra information. I am excited, and I mean really excited, to be going on holiday next week. Just saying the sentence with intonation and tone is going to help you figure out, oh, where's them breaks in the sentence? Where are the clauses kind of broken up? And I'll show you where it is now. It's the and that's going to trick a lot of people. I am excited, and I mean really excited, to be going on holiday next week. And we can check this now. Does it make sense if I take out that extra information in the middle where the dashes are used? I am excited to be going on holiday next week. Yes, it does. Absolutely. So we know that's going to get us the mark. Question 27. Rewrite the question below as a statement. Use only the words given. Remember to punctuate your answer correctly. When it says this, you really have to. It's not going to give you the mark if you punctuate it incorrectly. Okay? You have to do everything, including capitalization and everything perfectly. Is art Tariq's favourite subject? We talked about this earlier, how you can just swap two words to make this into a statement rather than a question. And quite simply, if you swapped art and is, and then just copied out the rest of the sentence, you would have to copy the whole sentence, by the way, and put a full stop. You'd get the mark. Now, the mark scheme allows for quite a few options. Tariq's favourite subject is art. Art is Tariq's favourite subject, like we've done. Art's Tariq's favourite subject, if you use a contraction. Art is Tariq's favourite subject. There's loads of ways to do this, okay? You could put an exclamation mark at the end. It even allows for that. But the simple way here is to swap these two words. The less you swap, the less chance there is of going wrong, okay? Question 28. Which sentence is punctuated correctly? Now, this is a brilliant question because it's basically asking our use of dashes. Now, which group of words need to be joined by dashes in this sentence? Erin wanted the most up to date. No, I see straight away that it's up to date, that we're going to have to hyphen. Okay, to put into like one of those compound adjectives to describe the computer. We want something that is up to date. That's the phrase we need to hyphenate. So we can see that's wrong. We can see this one's wrong because most is not needed. We could just put wanted the up-to-date computer. Up-to-date is the only ones we want to be hyphenated here. Again, we don't need to join computer at all. These are all ones that are very easily going to trick us, I must say. But the thing we're looking for, that's the one thing we have to identify, is that it's up to date. That's what we need to put hyphenate to make this sentence make sense and make it correct. Question 29, insert a comma after the fronted adverbial in each sentence. Again, you should be able to take a fronted adverbial out of a sentence to leave a main clause that makes sense in its own. Lots of people then look at this fronted adverbial and think, oh, luckily's an adverb. I'm just going to put a comma there. That would be wrong. That would be wrong, because a fronted adverbial can be a phrase. Luckily for us, comma, the ball rolled slowly past the goal. That's what's going to get you the mark. That whole phrase needs to be used to put the comma after us. After 3 hours, comma, no, that would be wrong as well, because you have to keep reading until you get the whole phrase. After 3 hours of hard work, comma. Then we see here, the builders managed to dig out the tree. So read really carefully, okay? If you'd put after, comma, or after 3 hours, comma, of hard work, the builders managed to dig out a tree. No. Do the test. See if it works on its own. Question 30. Underline the relative clause in the sentence below. We've talked about relative clauses already. Relative clauses are those clauses that add extra information for where, who, that, when. And here we can see the house, where I was born. So look for where and then think, okay, how far along can I go? Where I was born has been demolished. Again, if we just take this out, does it make sense? The house has been demolished. Yes, that relative clause is adding extra information. It doesn't need to be in the sentence for it to make sense, but the whole group of words count as the whole clause. Question 31. What could the exclamation mark tell you about the sentence below? Tick all the correct responses. I'm looking for more than one again. We are going swimming tomorrow. It shows that the person feels strongly about going swimming. Yes, that is the correct use of an exclamation mark. It's showing emotion, over the top feeling. Exclamation marks can do that absolutely fine. It shows the person has not finished speaking. Nonsense. You can have an exclamation mark and then carry on speaking because you have a new sentence. That is not a correct use. It shows the person is speaking loudly. Yes, that is also a function of an exclamation mark in a text. If there's an exclamation mark at the end, it can show volume, getting louder. It shows the person is not sure if they're going swimming. Exclamation marks have absolutely nothing to do with modifying the sentence in this way. Nonsense. So the only two there are those two. Question 32. Circle the subject in the sentence below. Every sentence has a subject, an object. Most sentences have a subject and an object. A subject is the thing that is doing the action. So find the verb in a sentence. Wrote a letter. Who actually wrote the letter? Because they're the subject. In this case, it was Josh. So Josh is at the start of the sentence, which is usually a clue as well, and he is performing the action of the verb. Josh is the subject. In this case, the object would be the Canadian friend. That would be the object who is having the letter written to him. It's going to come in handy later, trust me. Question 33. What are the underlined words in the sentence below? The girl with curly red hair. Now this, straight away, we see a noun, and the noun's been modified with extra detail and the word with adjectives here and another noun at the end. This is a classic noun phrase. You can call it an expanded noun phrase if you want to. That's absolutely fine. But it is a type of noun phrase. This is not a main clause. Doesn't make sense on its own. It's not a subordinate clause. Doesn't have a subordinating conjunction. It's not a relative clause. It doesn't have a relative pronoun. None of those are correct. It's just a simple noun phrase. Question 34. We're really storming through this, guys. My goodness. Absolutely brilliant. Write the contractive form with the underlined word in the boxes below. This will always come up. This will always come up because you see will not and you think willn't. Willn't is nonsense. Willn't is not a word. You have to spell this correctly, else you will not get it, and you need to make sure the apostrophe goes in the right place. Will not goes to won't, like that, with an apostrophe in the right place and the exact correct spelling. Karina said that she would come. This would go to she'd. So she, and then an apostrophe here is representing getting rid of the W, the O, the U, and the L, because then we put a D on the end. It's like shed, but with an apostrophe, and it changes how it's spelled, and it means something completely different. So it's nothing like shed. Question 35. Award 1 mark for the... I'm reading the mark scheme now. Which two sentences contain a preposition? Preposition tells us the position of something, either a place or a position in time. That's vital. Which two sentences tick 2? Kelly wrote a poem on Tuesday night. These are time prepositions telling us when something's happening in time, where in time. On Tuesday night, so we tick this one. She worked very hard all evening. No preposition in there. Her mum read the poem before school. Before is telling us a position in time. So we can tick that one. We've already ticked 2. We can go through the rest. Kelly's mum said it was excellent. Nothing to do with prepositions there. Kelly really enjoyed writing her poem. No reference to a position in time or place. Question 36. Circle the possessive pronoun in the sentence below. A possessive pronoun, like we talked about, a pronoun replaces the noun. It also denotes that the person of the pronoun that we've changed is also in possession of something. She asked to borrow Zach's pencil. Lots of people will be tempted to put Zach's because it's got the possessive apostrophe. This is not a pronoun, though. This is just a noun. The possessive pronoun here is hers. Because we're saying hers, her what? We're not saying her is, are we? We're saying hers in terms of pencil were blunt. She asked to borrow Zach's pencil because hers, and we're saying here she possesses pencils, and then we're going to describe them as blunt. So the option there is hers for a possessive pronoun. Again, the other trick is she would be a pronoun, but it's not showing any possession there. So really a tricky question, just that's trying to really kind of trick you with the other options in the sentence. 37. Explain how the position of a comma changes the meaning of the sentences below. As Fred ate the sweet orange, balloons were given to the children. As Fred ate the sweet, orange balloons were given to the children. Now, this mark scheme, I'm going to read straight from the mark scheme here so you know exactly what it says because it's quite long and intense and lots of detail. Award 1 mark for a response that refers to both sentences and demonstrates that the comma shows in the first sentence, Fred ate an orange, and in the second sentence, Fred ate a sweet. The position of that comma changes what Fred has eaten. If you make reference to that, you will get a mark. So all of a sudden, it's a sweet orange, and then it's just a sweet. The thing you imagine in your head completely changes. If you make reference to the change in what Fred is eating, you will get a mark. You just need to make sure you put that into a sentence that's suitable. The example here is, the first sentence is saying that Fred ate a sweet orange, but the last one says he ate a sweet. That simple would get you a mark. Question 38. Which sentence uses a semicolon correctly? Well, a semicolon looks like this, like a colon, but with almost like a comma at the bottom. And we need to think about the role of a semicolon. A semicolon joins together two clauses, two independent clauses that make sense. So main clauses in their own right that are linked somehow. So here in the bag we found, and it starts off a list, 5 carrots, no. To start off a list, we use a colon, and then we could use semicolon to continue the list if there were long phrases. This is just completely wrong. The book began with a boy called Tim climbing a steep hill. This is a whole thing is just one clause. The book began with a boy called Tim climbing up a steep hill. Tim is climbing the steep hill. We don't need to separate it. That is the incorrect use. Jessie went to look for her brother, Bill. No, again, we are not separating here two things that make sense on their own and that are linked. However, at the bottom, always at the bottom, isn't it? It feels that way anyway. The wind was howling. The rain was drumming on the roof. Well, clearly we can tell these are linked because they're both talking about the weather and they both make sense on their own. That's the correct use of a semicolon. Question 39. Complete the sentence below with an appropriate subordinating conjunction. Now, let's read it for the context because we have to pick an appropriate subordinating conjunction, not just any old one. Football is his favourite sport. James also enjoys watching tennis on television. So we've got a bit of a comparison here. And the mark scheme allows for quite a few. Remember, please, you must capitalise. If you don't capitalise, you will not get this mark correct. This is a grammar, punctuation and spelling test. Even though it's testing subordinating conjunctions, if you can't punctuate and capitalise your sentence correctly, you're not going to get a mark. Even if you can't spell it either. It has to be correct spelling. Although is one correct option. And we need to make sure that we know all of them. Although, even though, while, all of those will make sense and will be accepted. Do not accept, I'm going to say this once again, misspellings or errors in capitalization. What we've got here is a comparison, something we might not think is true. Well, although football's his favorite, or even though football's its favorite, while football's his favorite, we're going to talk about something else. So even though this happens, this also can happen. Any of those would be absolutely fine in this context. Question 40. Circle the adverb in the sentence below. Adverb. Now, let's take a look because an adverb can modify a verb, can also modify an adjective. It's got a wide range of jobs here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you actually what the adverb is. The boy had 7 brothers. We know there are no adverbs there. So something I like to do sometimes is just cross through. So if I'm confused or I'm a bit stuck, because this is a tricky question, each one I don't know, different is an adjective, right? Isn't different? We're explaining someone as something different from, no, the is the determiner, others are nouns. Look, you can use deduction and just get left with quite. Quite is the answer because it's modifying this adjective. They're quite different, very different, completely different. If you start thinking about words that we could swap in with quite, it might become more obvious, especially completely, absolutely, those classic ly adverbs. Well, if they all work in here, it's likely that this is an adverb, even though it doesn't end with that ly, because as we know, guys, it's not as simple as adverbs end in ly. There are loads of adverbs that don't, soon, when, etc. It's a simplified rule that we use lower down in the school system. When we get to year 6, we need nuance because this test is going to test us on questions like this, where quite is the adverb. Question 41. Complete each sentence with a word from the same word family as proud. So proud is the root word. There's lots of ways we can change that. For example, earlier we talked about eat can change to ate. So these are going to be irregular. The first one, we can actually write down quite simply. Proud represented our school in the competition. We have to spell this correctly. So we're going to put a suffix on the end. We're going to put proudly, ly. Must spell it correctly. Must spell it correctly. And if you capitalize it, it's going to be wrong. We took proud in representing the school in our competition. This is where it's irregular. It's not unproud or proud. It doesn't make sense. It's not a prefix or a suffix. We're actually changing the word completely, like when we change it from eat to ate. In this one, we took pride. Now, again, saying the sentence is going to help you figure it out half the time, but just beware, they're not always going to be regular changes, just adding a suffix, just adding a prefix. The whole actual word does often change as well. Question 42, circle the relative pronoun in each sentence. We've talked about this loads. Now, you need to know what words to look out for. We're looking for words like who. I'm going to just do it as we go. Which, because we can even tell from this one, what have I done wrong? It doesn't say the relative clause. It says the relative pronoun, and it says the circle. Need to read the questions properly. Here's a really big hint is the commas. A large collection of gold and silver was discovered in 2009. The relative clause is in the middle. The relative pronoun is what's going to start it off for us, in this case, which. Again, we've got commas in the second one. That's going to help us a lot. Mr. Herbert, who, so which, who, we need to know those are relative pronouns, made the discovery using his metal detector. Now, this tricky one at the bottom, because this one is quite often used without any commas at all, and it's not starting with a W, so it's that different word again. It is that. Some of the artifacts that he found are on display in museums. We can check it. If we take out that he found, some of the artifacts are on display in museums. So it is in there. It is hiding away, and there are various reasons why we don't have to use commas in that respect. We don't have to go into them in this video, but we can see there which, who, and that. And look, it's just 1 mark. This is a common theme in this test. 1 mark questions. You need to get everything right to get the mark. One small mistake, you'll lose it all. Question 43. Insert the full stops and capital letters in the passage below so that it's punctuated correctly. This is one big run-on sentence. We need to make sure that we do this absolutely perfectly. So let's take a look. Clearly, this needs to be a capital. We hope that you enjoy the new school meals. Full stop. The menu will be put on the school website if you have any comments. The menu will be put on the school website if you have any comments. No, we know that's wrong, and we know we're not changing this comma. So this comma is the start of a fronted clause in the next sentence, which is going to start with if. So change if to a capital, put a full stop here. Let's test it out. The menu will be put on the school website. If you have any comments, please send us an email. And if you stopped here, you've done a really good job. But you're going to get 0. Because you have to remember the full stop right at the end, and then you'll get 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things you need to add to this just to get 1 mark. If you add 5 of them, you get 0 because you miss 1 out. That's just the nature of this test, guys. Question 44. Circle the coordinating conjunction in the sentence below. Coordinating conjunctions are those basic conjunctions we use to join 2 clauses, 2 parts of a sentence that would make sense on their own. In this case, it is and. For example, our team was less experienced than the others. Nobody expected us to do well. Both of those make sense on their own. All this sentence is doing to try and confuse us is putting although in the front, which is not coordinating as a conjunction. That's there to throw us off. This is a coordinating conjunction. Although here, that's used as, to put a subordinate clause at the front. That's the trick. And we know we're towards the end of the test because we've got tricks like that. You need to know your coordinating conjunctions. Those are the ones that join 2 sentences that make sense on their own and have equal importance. So and is a classic coordinated conjunction. Add a different prefix to each word to form its antonym. We've already talked about antonym meaning opposite, so now we need to know our prefixes. What's the opposite of honest? It's dishonest. There's no shortcut for these sentences, guys. We just have to know our prefixes and how they're used. If something's separable, we can separate it. If we can't, they are inseparable. And then finally, for noticeable, if something's not noticeable, it's quite unnoticeable. Notice it makes a double N, absolutely fine. We know it's U-N. We have to spell these prefixes correctly, else we do not get the mark. We don't need to capitalize because this is not sentence work. This is just simple words, one-off words. Question 46, circle the 3 determiners in the sentence below. Wow. So determiners go before a noun to tell us how many or which specific noun we're talking about. In this case, the black kitten. So the is a determiner. A tight ball. That's a determiner because it comes before a noun. Where else can we see here a noun with a word before it that's going to tell us exactly what the noun is or how many there are? It is its. So we can see here, paws is the noun. So the determiner is its because it's telling us that it wasn't just any old paw. It wasn't a paw from a cat off the street. The kitten was licking its own paws. So that determines what the paws are that we're talking about in this sentence. So there are the 3 determiners. Again, don't do any underlining like this. Just be really clear. They're my 3 determiners. Question 47, rewrite the sentence below in the active form. This links back to what we said earlier about subject and object. A song will be sung by the children. For something to be in the active, it has to be the actual noun that's performing the action at the front of the sentence. For example, here, a song will be sung by the children. So the children here are doing the singing. So to make it active, we have to move them to the front. We can say the children, and please excuse my poor handwriting, okay, because my graphics tablet ran out of battery. I'm using my mouse. It's quite good for a mouse, right? The children go to the front. And then the options that we have here, again, there's a few different ways that we could put it. It says also accept. The children will sing a song. So we keep will. The children will sing a song, and we can see here that the actual verb has changed from sung to sing. So that's going to get us one right there. Remember, what do you have to do? Full stop. Changing this verb, by the way, is vital. You cannot get that wrong. That's part of the sentence. That's what it's testing. The active will change the verb itself. So the children will sing a song. It says here to also accept the children will be singing a song. So that changing from sung to sing or singing, still both active, absolutely fine. Question 48, circle all of the conjunctions. So again, we're looking for more than one in the sentence below. When is a conjunction of time, when my brother visits, because we can move it to the end. We always go to the park so, and you can see so as well. It's perfect like that. Lots of you might be saying, well, can't I put so that? Because we can put 2 words sometimes as a conjunction doing the same role. The mark scheme says that's absolutely fine. So you can do so or you can do so that. If you just do that on its own, though, that would be wrong. Get it? That would be wrong. That would be wrong. Do you get it? Right, you can tell we've only got 3 questions left, right? Let's keep going. Question 49. Rewrite below in passive. So we've just done something in active. Now we need it in passive. So the Romans invaded Britain over 2,000 years ago. So the Romans here, they're the subject because they're doing the invading of the object Britain. Now, the job here to make it passive is to put Romans at the end, to put Britain at the front. So there's lots of examples here of what could work. The most simple one is putting Britain to the front. And again, we've got to change the wording to make it work with the tense, for example, with the verb, Britain was, and this is the most simple one here, invaded by Romans. That'll get you a mark. All you had to do was change the order of the subject and the object. Simple as that. For it to be passive, the thing actually doing the verb has to come at the end, has to come after. You could put a full stop there and you'd get the mark. You need capital letter. You need capital letter for Romans as well. If you get any capital letters wrong, you're not going to get the mark. You have to put a full stop. You, of course, could carry on with the detail and put over 2,000 years ago. There are lots of different ways. I'm going to read you some. Over 2,000 years ago, comma, Britain was invaded by the Romans. Over 2,000 years ago, Britain was invaded. Britain, over 2,000 years ago, was invaded by the Romans with commas. Loads of ways to do it. This is the most simple. Just whack Britain to the front, put Romans at the end. Simple, simple, simple. Just remember capital letters and full stops. Guys, before I go to the last question, can you please subscribe if you found this useful? And if you've got this far, surely you liked this video. Smash the like button. Leave us a comment. How did you find this test? But let's go to the final question. Question 50. Tick one box in each row to show whether once is an adverb or a conjunction. Another question type testing when one word can be 2 different word classes depending on its context. I've only been to France once. with my family. This is an adverb because it's modifying how often you've been somewhere. So it's modifying the verb to be somewhere. I've only been to France once with my family. It's telling us how often. I've been to France loads of times. So in this case, it's used an adverb. Next one, once I arrived in Paris, I tried to speak French. We're not talking about how many times. We're saying once something happened in this case. It's used as a conjunction at the start of this clause. You could test it by saying, I tried to speak French once I arrived in Paris. Next one, my accent really improved once we had been there a few days. Again, we're not saying how many times we've been there. We're saying once something had happened, in this case using it as a conjunction to add detail. So it's a conjunction. And that is the entire GPS test from the 2023 SATs paper. Guys, you asked for it. We delivered it. Surely that's worth a like and a follow and a subscribe and a notification bell and all of those good things. Leave me a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you next week for the maths papers.